It begins with a whisper, not of words, but of wind, a low, murmuring sigh rolling across the plains of Kansas. Some people wake to the hum of alarm clocks, but the storm photographer wakes to that sound, as if the air itself is clearing its throat before a long performance. It's 1956, a golden age for both film and weather, when most people feared storms, and a rare few chased them. Welcome to Yawn-Worthy Jobs for Sleep, the channel that drifts through unusual professions with the calm curiosity of a cat watching raindrops down a window pane. Tonight, or perhaps this morning, depending on where you are, we're stepping into the quiet light, or perhaps the loud one, of a storm photographer, a job of patience, danger, and beauty. Before you settle in, perhaps dim the lights, pull your blanket close and imagine the smell of wet earth and electricity in the air. Because today's tale begins at dawn, on the open prairie, where thunderclouds are poetry in motion. In the early 1950s, storm photography was an emerging art. Before satellites, radar, or digital sensors, people depended on brave photographers to document the sky's temper, to capture the anatomy of a storm so scientists could understand it. The storm photographer was equal parts artist and explorer, working from the passenger seat of an old Studebaker or Ford, camera clutched like a talisman, watching the clouds as a sailor watches the sea. A thin line of silver light creeps over the horizon, revealing a landscape vast and empty, the wheat fields glistening with dew, a single telephone pole standing like a sentinel. The photographer rises from his cot in a roadside motel, stretching stiff shoulders, listening to the wind through the cracked window. Outside, the sky is a pale green-gray, the kind that promises mischief. He smiles softly. That's the color of opportunity. In the corner, his constant companion, a barometer, round and brass like a pocket watch, ticks gently. That's our recurring motif for today, the quiet barometer that never sleeps. It's the heartbeat of his work, the friend who warns him when the pressure drops and the world is about to shift. He begins the day with ritual precision, the coffee pot hissing, the camera bag unzipped, the lenses checked. The cameras of 1956 are heavy beasts. Rolleiflex, Leica, perhaps even a Graflex press camera for those wide, moody skies. There's no burst mode, no autofocus, only patience. Each shot demands calculation, aperture, shutter speed, exposure, and when lightning might last a tenth of a second, calculation becomes instinct. He pours black coffee into a tin cup, the steam curling into the chill air. On the motel table lies a folded map of Tornado Alley, Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, marked with circles and arrows like a war plan. He traces a finger over the printed names: Salina, Dodge City, Tulsa. The morning reports from the Weather Bureau, collected over scratchy radio, hint at instability in the atmosphere, the kind of instability that makes clouds rise into cathedrals. As he packs the car, the sound of tires crunching gravel echoes softly. The prairie dog holes dot the roadside like punctuation marks. The photographer always carries a strange assortment of things: extra film rolls, glass filters, a thermos of coffee, sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, and a small transistor radio that hums with static. Each item has its place, each movement its rhythm. It's a quiet ballet of preparation. In this period, storm photography wasn't yet a recognized career. There were no TV crews, no chase teams with radar vans, only a handful of eccentric meteorologists, postal workers on their day off, and war veterans turned photographers who found solace in tracking nature's fury. Some sold their images to Life magazine or the National Weather Service. Others simply kept them as proof that they had seen the sublime and survived it. By mid-morning, the sky begins to change. Thin cirrus clouds give way to darker cumulus towers swelling like rising bread. He drives slowly, window open, the wind carrying the scent of rain and dust. The barometer needle dips ever so slightly. He notices it and murmurs, as if to an old friend, "We're in for something today." Down dusty roads he travels, past farmhouses where laundry flaps on clotheslines, past tractors left mid-field. The people here know storms intimately. They watch them the way one watches an old friend with bad habits. Fascinated, fearful, forgiving. The photographer, however, sees more than danger. He sees form and color and light, the artistry of the sky. He stops near a windmill, the kind with creaking blades and rusted bolts. From this vantage, he sets up the tripod, levels the horizon, and checks his exposure. The first rolls of film are for practice, just the morning light catching on the undersides of clouds, the texture of distant rain curtains. Each click of the shutter is a heartbeat, each roll of film a small act of faith. While he works, the prairie hums with life, grasshoppers clicking, a meadowlark singing somewhere unseen. The windmill moans softly in rhythm with the turning of the earth. He adjusts his lens and pauses. The clouds are organizing, aligning into long streaks called streets, a sign of convection. To most, it's just weather. To him, it's architecture. The barometer ticks again, lower still. He notes it in a small leather-bound journal. Temperature, wind direction, humidity. In 1956, data was gathered by hand, and those handwritten notes were sometimes the only record of storm evolution in rural counties. His handwriting, neat but hurried, captures science through artistry. As the hours drift, the sky grows darker. He eats his sandwich while sitting on the hood of his car, watching the horizon as if attending a performance. Occasionally, lightning flickers far away, silent for now, like stage lights testing before the curtain rises. He smiles faintly. The day will be long, but this is the part he loves most, the waiting. Waiting is a skill lost in modern times. Today, satellites can tell us where a storm will strike before it's even born. But in 1956, waiting was the job. Reading the clouds, listening to the birds, feeling the air shift. The storm photographer becomes a kind of weatherman of the soul, attuned to nature's subtle cues. He adjusts his seat, sips coffee gone lukewarm, and hums a tune that nobody remembers. The barometer rests now at the edge of its comfort zone. The needle trembles. That's enough to make him load another roll of film. A gust of wind sweeps across the field, bending the grasses like waves. The photographer narrows his eyes. He recognizes the shift, the smell of ozone, the sudden coolness that precedes a downdraft. He jots a quick note. Tower developing southwest, rotation possible. It's written with the calm precision of a man noting that breakfast was satisfactory. By noon, the clouds tower 10 miles high, anvils spreading across the sky. Farmers retreat to barns, children are called indoors, but the photographer drives toward it, always toward it, because in the center of fear there's beauty that few will ever see. And yet, he's not reckless. He knows storms like sailors know tides. respectful, observant. He keeps a safe distance, always mindful of escape routes, the direction of rotation, the nearest ditch if things go wrong. For him, survival is an art form, too. He sets up again, this time closer, feeling the wind tug at his coat. Dust rises from the road, blurring the horizon. He braces his tripod with sandbags, checks his focus once more, and waits. There's no sound except the soft rattle of the barometer needle and the sigh of wind through grass. Then, with the grace of an orchestra beginning its overture, the first distant thunder rolls. By late morning, the night has changed. It's no longer the soft gold of dawn, but a thin, silvery brightness that seems to come from everywhere at once. The kind of light that makes the world look both sharper and quieter. The wheat fields have stopped shimmering. Now they ripple, restless, under a rising wind. Out on the highway, the storm photographer leans forward in his seat, one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel, the other keeping his coffee from spilling. The barometer, his brass-faced companion, rattles faintly in its bracket on the dashboard. The needle quivers. It's a polite little warning, the sort of gesture an old friend makes before saying, "Hold on to your hat." Down the road, a mile or two ahead, the sky bruises. There's a low, purple band of cloud that looks close enough to touch, and above it, white towers billow like steam from an unseen engine. He slows the car, not out of fear but reverence. To him, these clouds aren't obstacles, they're architecture. He studies them as a painter studies brushstrokes, tracing the subtle transitions from ivory to slate, from slate to the deepest indigo he's ever known. He pulls onto the shoulder of the road, gravel crunching beneath the tires. The tripod goes up first, a three-legged sentinel planted in the dust. Then the camera, a boxy Graflex with a gleaming metal hood. He measures the light through a handheld meter, squinting slightly, and adjusts the aperture. There's a comforting series of small, mechanical clicks, the slow heartbeat of his craft. In this era, storm photography required a particular patience. Without digital sensors or auto-adjusting lenses, each frame was a small gamble. Photographers of the 1950s relied on their eyes, their instincts, and occasionally sheer luck. Exposure too long, and the lightning vanished into a white blur. Too short, and the scene remained in shadow, the drama lost to darkness. The storm photographer, though, has learned to read the rhythm of the clouds, the steady inhale before the flash. As he waits, the wind picks up. Dust scuttles across the road like quick-footed spirits. A tumbleweed rolls lazily by, as though unconcerned by the commotion above. He glances at his journal on the passenger seat, already open to a fresh page, 11:42 a.m. Cumulonimbus developing south-southwest. Cloud tops anvil-shaped. Wind southeast at 20 miles per hour. Pressure 29.41 and falling. Each note is both scientific and poetic, the meeting point between weather and wonder. Then it happens. A thin white filament flickers between cloud and earth. Lightning, but distant, silent. He steadies himself, one hand tightening on the release cable. Another flash follows, this one closer, branching like the veins of a leaf. He presses the shutter. The camera clicks, curtains sliding across the film plane, capturing that brief exchange of heaven and earth. He exhales slowly, one frame down. Perhaps a dozen left on this roll. He'll guard each one like a precious coin. Overhead, the thunder finally catches up, a low, rolling drum beat that travels for miles. softening as it reaches him. The barometer needle dips again. The photographer gives it a small tap, as though thanking it for the warning. Back in the car, the radio crackles. The voice of a weather announcer in Wichita speaks through the static. Possible severe weather developing over central Kansas this afternoon. Residents advised to monitor conditions. The photographer smiles. He doesn't need to monitor. He's already in it. He drives west now, chasing the darkening horizon. The road narrows, the fields grow wilder, dotted with stubborn sunflowers and half-collapsed barns. Every few miles, a windmill creaks, turning slower and slower as the air grows heavy. Storm chasing in 1956 meant using more intuition than instruments. Radar networks existed only in military bases. Civilians depended on reports from pilots and local observers. The photographer's tools, a map, a compass, and that faithful barometer, were all he needed. Each gust of wind, each shift in temperature, told him something the radio never could. He stops again near a barbed wire fence. The clouds above are no longer separate towers, but a single enormous mass, folding in on itself like dough. From the underside, a strange turquoise glow leaks through, a sign that hail is forming high above. He ducks into the back seat, rummages for a filter lens, and screws it onto the camera with practiced calm. The light is changing by the second, and he wants to capture that eerie color, the one that makes the world look like it's underwater. Raindrops arrive in ones and twos, fat and lazy at first. They strike the car roof with soft metallic thuds, leaving dark circles that spread like ink. He waits for the real downpour. In storm work, timing is everything. Too soon, and the lens floods. Too late, and the shot is gone. When it comes all at once. Sheets of rain racing sideways across the field, wind howling through the grass. He shields the camera with his coat, leaning against the gale. Water runs down his sleeves, into his boots. And still, he's smiling. The barometer rattles violently now, its glass face fogged with condensation. He manages 3 more exposures before retreating. Inside the car, everything smells of ozone and wet leather. He wipes his hands on a rag and watches the storm blur the world into watercolor. Lightning arcs again, much closer, illuminating the interior of the car for a split second. It's as if the sky itself blinked. Through the window, he sees a hawk, the same one he's noticed on several outings, perched defiantly on a fence post, feathers slicked flat against its body. The bird has become a kind of recurring companion, too, appearing whenever the air grows wild. He nods at it, as though greeting a colleague. The hawk stares back, unimpressed by human fascination. As noon drifts into afternoon, the rain slackens. He takes advantage of the lull to reload film. Each cartridge must be changed under a protective cloth, fingers moving delicately so no light leaks in. The task is slow and strangely meditative. Click, wind, close, breathe. When the lens is ready again, he steps out to photograph the aftermath. The wet shimmer of the highway, the way puddles mirror the bruised sky. A single-grain silo stands in the distance, its silver skin gleaming like a lighthouse in a stormy sea. The scene feels empty and eternal. He notes something else, the temperature drop, from warm and sticky to cool and crisp in under an hour. That's the hallmark of a powerful front moving through. Modern meteorologists use Doppler radar to visualize such boundaries. But here, in the 1950s, the photographer reads them through sensation. The weight of air on the skin, the smell of wet soil, the quiet shift in bird calls. The barometer has settled for the moment, needle steady but low. He takes a sip from his thermos, grimaces. The coffee has gone cold, but the ritual comforts him. Around him, steam rises from the asphalt like ghosts heading home. He drives again, moving north now, following the back roads that connect one small town to another. Each town offers its own microclimate. A diner with its neon sign buzzing even in daylight. A service station attendant wiping his hands on a rag asking, "You think it'll hit us?" The photographer only shrugs. Predicting storms is a kind of polite guessing game. Humility is part of the uniform. In between these human moments, he's alone with the landscape. The car's wipers keep time, a slow, rhythmic thwop, thwop against the windshield. He hums softly, the same tune as before, while scanning the horizon for signs of rotation. By 1:30, the clouds begin to organize again. He parks on a hill overlooking an endless quilt of farmland. From here, he can see the curvature of the world. The storm cell, now massive, churns slowly eastward. He spots the faint beginnings of a wall cloud, that low rotating base where tornadoes sometimes form. His pulse quickens, but his movements stay calm. Camera up, lens cleaned, tripod anchored, lightning forks across the sky, branching in impossible directions. He times the intervals between flash and thunder. 5 seconds, maybe 4. The storm is closing in. He checks the barometer. The needle dips so far it almost trembles. A muttered "easy now" escapes his lips, addressed to both the instrument and the sky. He decides to attempt something daring, a long exposure. He adjusts the aperture to f/8, locks the shutter open, and counts under his breath. The trick is to let multiple lightning bolts imprint themselves on a single frame without washing out the image. In modern photography, one could stack exposures digitally. Here, it's all chemistry and luck. He counts to 10, then closes the shutter. Another roll half spent, and not yet a single print to confirm success. That uncertainty is part of the job's strange piece. The photographer never knows what he's truly captured until the film is developed days later. For now, he must trust memory, the echo of thunder, the after image burned behind his eyelids. He lowers the camera, wipes his glasses, and just stands there for a while. The wind has quieted, though the storm still grumbles on the horizon. In that stillness, the world feels suspended between moments. He hears the distant rumble of a freight train, the faraway bark of a farm dog, the drip of water from his car's fender. He writes another note, 1:58 p.m., lightning frequent, rotation minimal, storm moving northeast, barometer 29.33 and steadying. The barometer, faithful as always, seems to nod in agreement. By 2 o'clock, sunlight begins to break through the edges of the storm. Beams of gold slice down between curtains of rain, turning the fields into patches of molten amber. He raises the camera one last time, framing the contrast. Dark cloud against sudden light. Click. The most fleeting moments are often the quietest. When he finally lowers the camera, he realizes he's hungry. The sandwiches are gone, the thermos empty, but he finds an apple rolling around under the seat and eats it slowly. Outside, the wind is cooler now, carrying the clean scent of ozone and cut hay. The barometer's needle at last begins to rise, a small, hopeful motion, like the world taking a breath after holding it too long. He taps the glass, listens to the faint tick, and smiles. Midday has passed. The storm is drifting east, leaving him with the hush that follows applause. He packs up his gear carefully, wiping each lens, folding the tripod, stowing the barometer back in its worn leather case. The car door shuts with a solid thunk, sealing him once more in his moving observatory. As he drives away, the sky opens wider, washed clean. The hawk lifts off from its fence post, circling once before vanishing into the distance. The photographer watches until it's just a speck against the light. Then he turns on the radio again, static, then a fiddle tune crackling faintly through, and lets the road unwind beneath him. Somewhere behind, the storm continues its slow march across the plains. Somewhere ahead, another will surely form. Between the two lies his purpose: to chase, to wait, to witness, and to remember. The barometer ticks once softly, like the closing of a book. By the time the clock on the car's dashboard drifts past 3, the air feels different again, lighter, yet charged, as though invisible threads of static are humming just above the fields. The sky, which only an hour ago had been bruised and swollen, is now a restless patchwork of color. Bright shafts of sunlight stab through rolling curtains of gray. The whole horizon flickers between shadow and glow, like a film reel running just a bit too slowly. The storm photographer rolls down his window, letting the wind tousle his hair and whistle through the cracked vent. There's that faint metallic tang of ozone again, the smell that means lightning is close enough to taste. He glances at the barometer on the dashboard, its needle hovering low but steady. The glass is flecked with tiny drops of dried rain, like freckles on an old explorer's face. He reaches into the back seat for his notebook, balancing it on one knee as the tires hum along the narrow Kansas road. The handwriting from earlier in the day, neat, even elegant, has begun to lean and wander, following the bumps in the pavement. 3:17 p.m. Secondary cell forming west. Wind shift noted. Air feels alive. He smiles at his own phrasing. Alive isn't a scientific term, but it's the only one that fits. The atmosphere seems to have its own pulse, its own conversation. Every gust of wind is a word, every thunderclap a sentence. He's just here to listen. Ahead, the clouds thicken once more, but this time they move differently. They twist. A low, rotating base drifts across the horizon, its edges smooth and heavy like poured molasses. It's the kind of formation that makes farmers turn off their tractors and step out to look. That instinctive, shared awe that brings even the busiest people to stillness. He pulls onto another dirt road, one that winds between soybean fields and broken fences. The wheels send up soft plumes of dust that hang briefly before dissolving. The wind picks up again, slapping his sleeve as he reaches for the Graflex camera. The first few drops of rain come sideways, sharp as pins. He tucks the barometer under his coat, protecting it from the spray. It's an old reflex, almost superstition, as though keeping that small brass circle dry will somehow keep him safe, too. When he steps out of the car, the soundscape shifts. The roar of the wind fades behind the rhythmic snapping of power lines overhead. In the distance, thunder speaks in deep, thoughtful tones. A single streak of lightning forks downward, far to the west, then another, closer this time. He waits for the sound. 1 Mississippi, 2, 3. Boom. He unfolds the tripod with quiet ceremony. Each click of the latches feels deliberate, almost reverent. The camera perches atop it like a patient bird, its lens pointed toward the approaching wall cloud. There's motion inside the storm, slow, deliberate rotation, like the turning of a great wheel. He checks his exposure settings, bracing his body against the wind. Every part of him has learned this dance. One hand steadying the tripod, the other poised on the shutter cable, breath held for balance. Then, like a curtain drawing back on a stage, the base of the cloud lowers. It begins to spin faster, tendrils of vapor reaching down and recoiling again. He's seen it before, but it never loses its quiet power. The sense that something vast and ancient is stretching its fingers toward the earth. He clicks the shutter once, twice, 3 times. Each frame costs him a precious piece of film, but it's worth it. These images will travel to meteorology conferences, to university archives, maybe even to the pages of Life magazine if luck allows. In 1956, such photographs were more than art. They were evidence, helping scientists understand how tornadoes are born. The rain thickens suddenly, pelting him like handfuls of gravel. He ducks behind the car door, using it as a shield. The barometer rattles inside his coat pocket, its needle vibrating like a compass too close to a magnet. Through the blur of rain, he notices a shape moving near the edge of the field. A pickup truck, old and blue, pulling to a stop. A man climbs out, wearing overalls and a straw hat held tight to his head. The farmer waves, shouting something lost to the wind. The photographer waves back, gesturing toward the low clouds as if to say, "Look at that." The farmer trudges over, his boots squelching in the mud. They shout to each other over the rising wind. "Think she's gonna touch down?" the farmer calls. "Too early to say," the photographer replies, his voice almost calm. "But she's close," the farmer nods, squinting at the sky. "Never gets old, does it?" "Never does," the photographer answers. They stand together for a while, two strangers joined by weather. The farmer's dog, a wiry thing with muddy paws, sits by his owner's feet, head tilted, ears twitching at every crack of thunder. The dog becomes part of the motif now, a temporary companion in this shared moment of storm watching. The rain slackens again, replaced by an eerie calm. The clouds above twist tighter, darker, their undersides turning greenish, that haunting shade that only comes before hail. The farmer glances toward his truck. "I'd best get the animals in," he says. The photographer nods. They exchange brief smiles, the kind of farewell that needs no words, and the man drives off, his taillights fading into the gray. Now alone again, the photographer feels the quiet deepen. The world seems to hold its breath. Even the wind stops, replaced by a strange, velvety silence. He knows this stillness well. It's the pause before the climax, the moment when the sky gathers itself for something spectacular. And then, a flash. A jagged white bolt splits the horizon, followed by another and another. The thunder arrives in overlapping waves, shaking the ground beneath his boots. He opens the shutter again, counting softly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each second adds another layer of light to the film. He closes it, advances the roll, opens it again. This is the rhythm of his afternoon. Click, count, wait, click. The heart of storm photography is patience disguised as action. In modern times, photographers carry digital cameras that can fire 20 frames a second, each instantly reviewed on a glowing screen. But in 1956, there is only trust. Trust in the machine, in the light, in the hand that holds steady while the wind tries to shake it apart. The first hailstones begin to fall, small at first, like marbles, then larger. One bounces off the hood of the car with a metallic ping. He covers the camera with his coat and waits, crouching low. The sound grows into a drum beat. Hail against metal, hail against earth, hail against his patience. After 5 long minutes, it eases. He stands, brushing water and ice from his sleeves, and looks out across the field. The ground glitters white, as if the world has been dusted with pearls. Above, the rotation begins to slow. The funnel never fully forms, just a ghost of one, a promise half kept. He takes one last photograph before the storm begins to drift eastward, the edges unraveling into soft rain. The barometer in his pocket feels lighter somehow, its needle beginning its slow climb back toward normal. He pulls it out, wipes the glass clear, and chuckles softly. "You've earned your rest," he says under his breath. Back in the car, he sits for a while, letting the engine idle. The air smells of wet wheat and gasoline. His reflection wavers faintly in the windshield, a tired man with wind-tangled hair and a satisfied half-smile. He checks the film canisters lined neatly on the passenger seat. 5 rolls filled today, maybe 6 if he counts the fragments from earlier. That's more than he expected. He drives north again, following the clearing skies. The road is slick, the edges lined with puddles that mirror passing clouds. Occasionally, a streak of sunlight breaks through, turning the wet pavement into a ribbon of silver. As he drives, he thinks of the scientists who will study these images. In 1956, the U.S. Weather Bureau has just begun experimenting with mobile radar units, trying to link storm photographs with radar signatures. The photographer's work, these fragile frames of film, might one day help identify the patterns that precede a tornado. It's humbling to know that his art could save lives. A few miles ahead, he spots a diner, the kind with a hand-painted sign that reads "Home Cooking" and a single neon letter flickering in the window. He parks out front, stretching his legs before stepping inside. The bell above the door jingles softly, a small, comforting sound after hours of thunder. The waitress behind the counter glances up and grins. "You look like you've been wrestling the sky," she says. "Lost the first round," he replies, sliding into a booth. She pours him a cup of coffee without asking. It's hot, strong, and tastes faintly of metal. Perfect. He orders pie, because that's what one does at small-town diners after storms. While he eats, the waitress switches on the radio. The announcer's talking about crop damage in the county south of here, but also about how the worst of it is past. The photographer listens absently, eyes drifting to the window. Outside, sunlight catches on raindrops sliding down the glass, each one reflecting a tiny piece of the world. He feels that quiet satisfaction that comes after a day of chaos, the calm inside a mind that has matched rhythm with nature. When he leaves, the barometer sits once more on the dashboard, gleaming in the golden light of late afternoon. The needle has risen a fraction. The wind, too, has softened, blowing gently from the west, the direction of home. He drives slowly now, unhurried. The road hums beneath the tires, a lullaby of motion. In the rearview mirror, the storm is only a distant bruise on the horizon, already dissolving into the evening haze. Ahead, the plains stretch endless and forgiving. Every so often he taps the barometer, watching the needle climb a little higher. A simple ritual, but it feels like applause. The earth applauding itself for another grand performance. By the time the sun dips toward the horizon, the world has turned to gold. The storm is gone now, just a dark smear on the eastern edge of the sky, and everything it touched glows as if freshly polished. The wet road reflects the low sun, the fields shimmer, and the air feels clean enough to drink. The storm photographer drives slowly, one elbow resting on the open window, his shirt still damp at the cuffs. The wind outside is soft and cool, carrying that unmistakable after-storm scent. Rain, dust, and the faint sweetness of crushed clover. In the back seat, his camera bag hums with quiet satisfaction, film rolls neatly packed like little time capsules. The barometer, still mounted on the dashboard, finally looks at peace. Its needle has crept upward, settling near the center. He turns off the highway and onto a smaller road that leads toward a town called Ellsworth, one of those prairie towns that always looks like it's just finished tidying up. A grain elevator stands tall at the edge, glowing orange in the fading light. The main street is half empty, except for a few pickup trucks parked outside the diner, and a boy on a bicycle throwing the evening paper toward porches. The storm has washed everything clean, even the sky, which now blushes pink and lavender like a half-asleep watercolor. He finds a small motor court on the outskirts, vacancy sign flickering, paint slightly peeling, curtains pulled against the dusk. The kind of place storm chasers favor, cheap, quiet, and unbothered by the smell of damp boots. He parks under a lone street lamp that hums faintly and goes to check in. The motel owner, a kindly woman in a floral apron, looks up from her crossword. "Chasing the weather again, are you?" she says, recognizing him. "Trying to keep up with it," he replies, smiling. She shakes her head with that particular Midwestern mixture of amusement and concern. "Room 7's open. Don't forget to hang your wet things. Last time you left half a thunderstorm on the carpet." He laughs softly, thanks her, and carries his gear down the row of identical doors. The key rattles in the lock, and the door opens to reveal the familiar scene. A narrow bed with a chenille spread, a desk lamp shaped like a tulip, a single framed print of a sailboat that has never known the sea. He sets the barometer on the bedside table first. Always the barometer, a habit he can't explain. Maybe it's because storms are fickle, and he likes to know if the air in his room is as calm as it feels. The brass gleams in the lamplight, the glass still fogged at the edges from his breath earlier. He wipes it gently with a handkerchief and murmurs, "You did good today." The next hour unfolds in a slow rhythm. He unpacks the camera, places the exposed rolls of film in a tin lunchbox for safekeeping, and hangs his wet coat by the window. The sound of crickets drifts in from outside, joined by the occasional whoosh of a car passing on the highway. Dinner is a can of soup heated on a portable coil burner, a trick he's perfected over years of travel. The smell of tomato and iron fills the room. He eats slowly, writing in his journal between spoonfuls. 5:45 p.m. Tornado failed to form, but rotation observed. Hail approximately 2 centimeters. Captured lightning at 1/5 exposure. Possible double strike on roll 3. Will verify upon development. His handwriting, once crisp, now loops lazily, reflecting the pace of the evening. Outside, the air cools further. Fireflies begin to spark in the tall grass beyond the window. small lanterns flickering to the same rhythm as his thoughts. After washing the dishes and wiping the table clean, habits from a military past, perhaps, he sets up his makeshift darkroom. The bathroom becomes a little workshop of shadow and scent. Towels stuffed along the door crack, red bulb clipped to the shower rod, bottles of developer and fixer lined along the sink. This part of the job always feels magical, as if conjuring ghosts from silver and light. He moves carefully, almost reverently. The film slides from its canister into the developing reel, his fingers sure despite the dimness. Into the tank it goes. He pours the chemicals with the same patience he gave the storm, agitating gently, counting seconds in his head. The barometer ticks softly in the other room, a reminder that even in still air, the world keeps breathing. The scent of photographic chemicals fills the small space, sharp but oddly soothing. To most, it would be unpleasant. To him, it's the smell of work completed, of truth slowly appearing. He waits, sways a little with the rhythm of his own heartbeat, and when the time is right, pours the solution down the drain and rinses the film in clear water. Then, holding his breath, he unspools the strip under the red light. The images emerge, faint, ghostly negatives of lightning, cloud, and land. He holds one up to the light and smiles. Perfect arcs of light caught mid-strike, the shape of the storm's breath itself. No blur, no washout, just clarity. He pins them to a clothesline stretched across the bathtub, where they sway gently, dripping like translucent ribbons. Outside the window, thunder murmurs far away, one last note from the day's orchestra. For a while, he just sits on the closed toilet lid, watching the film dry, the red light washing over everything. There's a quiet beauty in it, the stillness after movement, the calm after awe. This, he thinks, is the part of the job few people understand. The waiting, the careful coaxing, the humility of not knowing whether your day's labor was successful until the very end. When the negatives are ready, he wipes his hands, switches off the light, and steps back into the main room. The lamplight feels golden after the red. He cracks open the window an inch, letting in the cool evening air. The curtain flutters softly, brushing against the wall like a sigh. The barometer sits where he left it, needle steady near fair. He leans back on the bed, journal on his lap, pen tapping gently. Through the window comes the scent of wet earth and lilac. The world, it seems, has forgiven everything that came before. He writes one more note, 7:10 p.m. Calm returning, light west wind. The sky after a storm always feels kinder. Then he closes the book and rests his head against the wooden headboard. The radio on the nightstand crackles to life with the familiar voice of the Wichita announcer, reading the day's weather summary. Central Kansas reports minor hail damage, but no touchdowns. Storms dissipating as of 6:45 p.m., skies clearing overnight. Tomorrow, high near 81, light southerly winds. The photographer chuckles softly. The announcer says it so plainly, as if the day hadn't been full of drama and beauty and the thrilling hum of the sky almost coming undone. He switches the radio to a music station. A slow jazz tune fills the room, the kind that sounds like rain remembered from long ago. The saxophone bends low, smooth, unhurried. He taps his fingers against the notebook spine in time with the melody. Outside, the last light fades. The horizon glows for a moment. One final brushstroke of color. before giving itself over to blue. The fireflies blink on and off like distant stars practicing for the night shift. Somewhere, a screen door slams. A dog barks once, then twice, then gives up. He lies back fully now, hands folded across his chest, the barometer glinting faintly in his peripheral vision. Its glass catches the lamplight like a captured sunset. The ticking grows slower, or maybe he's simply drifting in and out of attention. He thinks about the people who live under these skies, the farmers, the teachers, the children who run to windows when thunder begins. Most of them see storms as trouble, something to endure. But to him, they're teachers. They show how fragile and strong the world can be at the same time. He wonders briefly what the next storm will look like, where it will rise, how it will twist. But the thought is soft, without urgency. For now, he has enough. The picture's drying, the air cooling, the needle steady. Outside, the wind carries the faint scent of hay and ozone. The barometer ticks one last time before settling. Night comes in on felt-soled feet. It does not slam the door. It eases the latch down and lets the cool air pour through the crack. The motel's neon sign hums with its sleepy red syllable, a soft, steady glow that pools across the gravel and climbs the curtains in a wavering ladder. In room 7, the storm photographer finishes rinsing the last strip of film and hangs it beside its brothers, each negative a tiny thunderstorm tamed into silver. Water ticks from the sprocket holes, a miniature rain shower under the red bulb. In the bedroom beyond, the barometer waits on the nightstand, a patient moon of brass. He moves more slowly now. The day's miles have settled into his calves, the wind still curls in his ears, and the memory of lightning keeps arranging itself at the edges of thought. The motel's radiator knits gentle clicks into the cricket's song. A car rolls by and fades into the long, quiet lane of the highway. On the desk, his journal lies open like a shallow lake catching dusk. He writes without hurry, 9:02 p.m. All rolls accounted for. Negatives look clean. Best strikes on roll 3, frame 8, and roll 5, frame 2. Rotation observed 3:30 to 3:55. No touchdown. Barometer at 29.78, rising. The handwriting is unshowy and precise, the kind that will still be legible when someone someday reads it under a brighter lamp and wonders what the sky looked like on this exact date. Out in the bathroom, the negatives finish their drip and settle into stillness. He brings the clothespins back to the drawer, tucks the reels away, and wipes the sink until it shines like a quiet pond. The red bulb clicks off. The ordinary light returns, kind and pale, as if it too has yawned. On nights like this, the work is not exactly over. It just changes its costume. The evening's task is careful packing. He spreads a hand towel on the desk and lines up the tools in a small parade. Magnifier, loop, grease pencil, paper envelopes, a rubber stamp, and the neat stack of exposure sheets. The envelopes are addressed in advance to Severe Local Storms Unit, U.S. Weather Bureau, because part of the job in 1956 is sending the day to people who study it. A few prints will travel later, but tonight he annotates time, compass bearing, rough distance, weather notes, lightning fork to ground southeast, anvil edge luminous. He smiles at that last word. Luminous is not a measurement, but some truths prefer poetry to arithmetic. He leans back and lets his eyes close for a moment. Behind the lids, today's sky reappears, not as a chronology, but as a sequence of feelings: the hush before a strike, the low bass drum of thunder rolling under the ribs, the way rain turns a road into a ribbon of quicksilver. Sleep tugs at him, but the small rituals ask to be completed, and rituals are what keep a traveler stitched to himself. On the radio, late-night voices murmur across static. A farm report nests inside a country song. The announcer thanks sponsors with the softened vowels of the plains. Somewhere between advertisements for tractor oil and church picnics, a 2-minute bulletin catalogs the county's damage: dented pickups, bruised alfalfa, a chicken coop with a new skylight of hail. The storm photographer listens with the detached kindness of a doctor reading vitals. The voice is steady. No injuries reported. He exhales, and sleep moves one chair closer. He sets the barometer in his palm. The brass is cool, the glass warm from the lamp, and the needle rests where fair weather lives. He tilts it this way and that as if consulting a compass, then returns it to its circle of lamplight. The barometer has been the day's metronome, measuring an invisible music. It will measure the silence, too. On the bedspread, the camera bag sits open. There is a simple contentment in cleaning gear at night: soft brush along a lens rim, a square of cotton drawn in gentle arcs over glass, the fine whir of cloth shutters checked for evenness. Film holders are emptied and stacked. Cloths are folded like small white clouds. He moves with the same patient economy he uses beside a field road, except now the wind is replaced by a fan, the horizon by a wall the color of butter, and the thunder by plumbing 2 rooms over. The day has changed its weather into a room, and the room is kind. An educational aside slips in naturally, as they often do when the hands are busy and the mind drifts like a slow balloon. In this era, storm images teach as much as they dazzle. The negatives, once printed, will serve as quiet witnesses at chalkboards and conference tables. Lecturers will point with a dowel and say, "Note the lowered bass, the inflow band here," and students will scribble sails of arrows into their notebooks. Without digital timestamps, the annotations matter. Without satellites, angles matter. Without color sensors, contrast matters most of all. In a decade not yet arrived, Doppler will draw motion into color on glowing screens. In 1956, motion lives in muscle memory. How the wind pressed a coat, how a fence leaned, how fast a shadow moved along wheat. He caps the brush and smiles again. There is a grace in beginnings. The motel's owner knocks once, the way considerate people do. "Need anything, dear?" comes the voice through the door. "Just a peaceful sky," he answers softly, and the footsteps recede, satisfied that peaceful skies are both plentiful and free tonight. He turns off the radio and lets the quiet grow larger. From under the door, a triangular gift of hallway light falls onto the carpet. He toes off his boots and sets them neatly side by side, as if they too require rest. The room smells faintly of developer, tomato soup, and after-storm air. He pulls the thin curtain an inch more closed, then opens the window an inch more wide, a compromise that lets the crickets do their stitching. On the desk, the map of the plains lies folded to the county he is in, its thin red lines crossing and recrossing like threads in a loom. He traces a finger along the road he took west to the windmill, north to the hill where the wall cloud drowsed, east again to the diner where the pie was lemon and the fork clinked kindly against the plate. A person could spend a life inside such small cartographies. A storm drawn as a remembered meal, a road measured by the song that was on the radio when the horizon opened. He tucks the map into the glove pocket of the camera case and clicks the latch shut. The sound is satisfying, like finishing a sentence with the exact word it wanted. Sleep steps into the room, polite as a church usher, though it will wait until the last chore bows. He sets the alarm clock, not because he doubts dawn, but because dawn enjoys being greeted on time. The hands align themselves at a promise. He flips the switch on the tulip lamp and then flips it back again, remembering one last thing, a postcard. The postcard is a simple picture of a grain elevator with a sky big enough to be 6 skies. He turns it over and writes in short, tidy lines to the small agency in Wichita that sometimes sells his pictures to magazines. Strong structures today, best negatives enclosed tomorrow. Hale noted, rotation failed to touch. Will be near Great Bend next 2 days. He hesitates, then adds, light and anvil particularly fine. The stamp slides into its corner. The card waits atop the journal like a quiet pet. In the bathroom mirror, he meets the face that has watched storms for years. It's an ordinary face, wind-creased at the eyes, the complexion of someone who lives outdoors more than in, the small smile of a person who likes his own company well enough to share it with the weather. He washes his hands slowly. The taps water a mild river over knuckles that have learned to be gentle with glass. The towel, thin and industrious, makes of his hands a pair of warm stones. He clicks the bathroom light off, and the motel returns to its single-lamp galaxy. The bed is firm in the way old beds are, honest and without surprise. He settles into it carefully, as though not to disturb the film drying in the other room, or the moth trying to solve the window screen's geometry. The sheet is cool. The blanket holds a clean, faint scent of sun from the laundry line. He slides the barometer closer so the brass disc almost touches the book's leather spine. The two together look like a small eclipse. Wind with a nighttime vocabulary moves through the cottonwoods. It tells slower stories after dark, stories of barns breathing, of fences resting their posts, of wheat sleeping with its green cheek on earth's shoulder. Somewhere not very far, a train offers a low, apologetic horn, then considers the matter closed. A memory comes, gentle as a tide. He is a boy on another prairie, lying on another bed in a house where storms walk the porch like tall relatives. The window is open and curtains billow. His mother says, "Count the seconds," and he counts, learning the map between light and sound that he will follow all his life. The memory folds itself like a handkerchief and rests in the pocket of the present. In the slow carriage of thought that carries him toward sleep, small educational notes climb aboard like quiet passengers and sit politely. How prints are washed to permanence in hypoclear. How film emulsions of this year favor steadier grain. How the severe local storms unit will pin his photographs to cork boards and draw pencil circles around what they consider instructive. How the cooperative observers telephone the bureau from general stores and Grange halls, their reports traveling by human voice long before they travel by ink. None of it demands attention. All of it hums like a remembered classroom when the teacher loves their subject. Lightning flickers far away, summer heat flexing its shoulders somewhere 2 counties east. It is not a threat now, only a lullaby with bright stitches. He listens for the thunder, and hears it as a soft companion piece, the world clearing its throat in another room. The barometer's needle does not budge. Fair, it says, fair and rising. He breathes in, long and even. Breath is a kind of weather, and the chest makes its own sky. In the corner, the camera watches with its single polished eye, a patient horse standing in a stable, content to drowse until rains and road ask again. The negatives in the bathroom whisper in chemical syllables as they harden. The postcard, unsent but certain, knows its morning will come. Faith takes small shapes at day's end. A folded map, a labeled envelope, a clock that will be honest about morning, a barometer that has no reason to lie. He lets those shapes arrange themselves around him like furniture he trusts in the dark. Through the open window creeps the perfume of damp earth cooling, a sweetness that belongs to fields after work. The fireflies resume their small negotiations. The neon sign outside keeps humming its one red word without expecting an answer. Somewhere, someone turns off a porch light and tells a dog it's enough patrol for one day. The storm photographer's thoughts go soft at the edges, like prints that have not yet fixed. They do not disappear. They simply float. He considers, without urgency, tomorrow's routes. Maybe east to catch the edge of what survived. Maybe south where the air feels lazy and the cumulus nap by noon. Maybe nowhere at all. Just breakfast with the men who swap weather the way some swap baseball. The day rewritten in cups of coffee under a fan that clacks like a patient metronome. He turns on his side. The sheet slides like a river around a stone. The pillow remembers his head the way a field remembers a wind that passed just once. He reaches out and taps the barometer. A feather touch, not to ask anything, only to say good night. The needle answers with an almost imperceptible tremble, and then holds, the way a sentence holds a final period and is satisfied. Sleep arrives the way the best storms arrive, quietly at first, then thoroughly, then with the relief of rain on dust. It settles him into a landscape without sharp corners. There, the day continues in gentler grammar. Clouds that stroll, lightning that poses politely for any camera that needs a second chance, wind that understands the value of an inside voice. In that landscape, the hawk rides a steady thermal and never has to tack. The farmer waves from a dry, safe porch, and the dog wags with two-thirds of the energy necessary for joy. The diner's neon sign hums in the distance and spells comfort. If there is philosophy in this sleep, it is simple and uses small words. To witness is a kind of kindness. To wait is a kind of courage. To write it down so others can see what the sky said is a kind of gratitude. The body believes these things even when the mind is busy with shutter speeds. At night, the body teaches the mind to be sure. The room keeps its promises. The window keeps its inch. The lamp keeps its circle unlit. The film keeps its secrets a few hours longer. Somewhere beyond the county line, a late storm speaks softly in its sleep, turning over once and then settling. The world, having performed all afternoon, lets its curtains fall. A small sound, the turning of a clock hand. A smaller sound, the barometer's faintest tick, as the air grows just a whisper lighter. Fair, it says again, as if to bless the sleeping. Fair and rising.